It's that time again, Grant.
Oh, yeah?
Welcome back. It's that time. I don't know how much longer I can keep up my special hype man powers. Might be waning a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I think I might need to take a trip back to the hype man homeworld.
You're losing your mojo.
Where what's his name is from?
That guy from wrestling.
No, Bruce Buffer?
Is that who
Michael
it is?
Buffer?
Let's get ready to rumble. Yeah.
How about no? I was thinking of who's that rap guy who goes, yeah,
Hype Williams.
okay,
Oh, Lil
all
Jon.
right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Lil Jon came directly from the hype home world. Exactly. Welcome everybody to the Rage Select podcast.
There you go.
Right. What's that?
There you go. That was good.
Yep.
You still got it.
That's what I got. I had to drink a Red Bull appetizer before I started drinking my coffee today.
Jesus.
Just to get my juices flowing. Because
how's your heart doing there, buddy?
it's ready to.
It's bursting out of your chest.
This is not Tony Stark cosplay. That's actually what my heart looks like these days. It runs about 200 beats per second.
Wow, you're like a hummingbird.
Yeah. I've got a lifespan. It's very, very short.
Good
But
grief.
welcome, everybody. I'm Jeff.
I'm Grant.
That's Grant. Grant, what is this shirt that you're wearing today? This is from the Beauty Bar here in Austin,
This
Texas?
is like an old Navy shirt from about, I don't know, 15 years ago.
This works really well for the radio, by the way. Let's move on to this almost immediately. Actually, I've got a question for you, Grant, to start the show today.
All right.
So I don't watch the Super Bowl, right?
Okay.
In fact, during the Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure that it was right before the Super Bowl. Kayla, John, and I were live streaming, and then in the Super Bowl, blah 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 blah. Right? Fuck the Super Bowl. I don't want
a video game nerd who doesn't like the Super Bowl.
Weird. That's crazy.
You're a rare breed.
Okay, so and generally speaking, you know that I don't really watch that much. Like I watched a bunch of Avatar a couple weeks ago. It was on Amazon Prime. I watched stuff on Netflix. I don't generally see commercials, but I've been jonesing to see the new Parks and Recreation, so I started watching that last week, and that shit's fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, right.
And I started seeing this commercial come up that I had heard about in my Facebook feed, and then it started coming up. It's this really shitty Budweiser commercial crapping on craft beer fan drinkers. And I was like, it's the stupidest commercial. It's like, yeah, fuck taste. Taste is for girls, right?
Yeah.
You got your mustache and your peach IPA. Fuck that. We drink horse piss here in America. I was like, it was the stupidest commercial. It was well put together, but
it's an aggressive ad.
Yeah.
We end up discussing it as well on the beer. Although we were a little bit hesitant because as far as the craft beer world, everyone has waxed on about it like ad nauseum, and by the time our episode's released 2 days ago from the release of this one, I guess.
Yeah.
We were like,
it's already been discussed today.
Yeah, what else were we going to add to this? But I mean, I think I surprised one of the other guys on there because I came down on like, yeah, it didn't really bug me that much. I get it's Budweiser. I get what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know their audience.
Yeah.
And they know that they're thumbing their nose at the craft beer audience, and it's a little shitty of them, but at what cost? On the right hand, they're saying fuck you to craft beer. On the left hand, they're buying up the exact same craft beer brewery that made a pumpkin peach beer that they're mocking. So it's like, whatever.
Here's a question.
Hypocrites.
I don't really know. I mean, I just drink the one cheap beer that is not Budweiser, right? Like, with all the craft beer and stuff that's been going on over the last like 5 or 10 years, are the like Budweiser, Miller, Coors? I mean, are they in jeopardy? Are those basic bitch beers finally going out of style as people have finally some goddamn options?
Yeah. In fact, just a couple months ago, I think that craft beer just hit that tipping point of selling more than any of those big three.
Okay.
Now, that's not any individual craft beer brewery, but like them as a whole are outselling the big guys. And it's a little bit of an eye-opener for them. I mean, they knew. These guys are savvy business people.
Yeah.
And that's why they see the writing on the wall, and if they're not going to change their product, what they're doing, which is smart, and it's scaring some people in the craft beer industry. I'm not too scared.
Well, they're just buying up.
They're buying up certain breweries.
Right.
Yeah, they like Goose Island out of Chicago was one of the first big ones they bought up.
Okay.
They just bought up Elysium, which is that brewery I was just talking about. That made the pumpkin peach beer.
Okay, right.
Weird. It's a weird beer. Yeah, but I mean,
pumpkin peach.
Yeah, some of these guys they're buying up the other ones and they're just kind of letting them do their thing.
Yeah.
But just kind of having them as part of their own stock now.
See, I think that when I was watching that, the thing that so to me was such like a I don't know. It was such a fuck you. It was like one of because for those of you who haven't seen this commercial, it's basically just like a bunch of random scenes, right? And
yeah,
then, like, the words
and the bar scenes.
But there was one where they're talking about you can have your pumpkin peach or whatever, and so it was like a guy with glasses and a mustache smelling a beer.
Yeah,
and it was like, yeah, you don't smell beer, you fucking good. You know, like it was like I don't even.
It was such a
that's every Friday
fuck
night.
You faggots.
Yeah,
and I was like, whoa,
exactly.
It was like such just like backwards hillbilly kind of like thing, and it's just kind of.
I guess it was just
it was immature.
I saw them put that frame up there as some kind of like.
I apologize for using that word. But that was the tone they were going for.
That was no, but see the thing is that when I watched it, I thought that was exactly what that message translated to in my mind were those exact words.
That's what they're basically trying to say, and it's just like
And so for me, I think it maybe backfired because like they show the mustache guy smelling a beer in like a ridicule, like mocking way.
Yeah.
That guy's in every fucking bar in Austin every Friday night. Like, I've seen that guy over and over. I'm friends with, like, 4 people who are that guy.
Yeah.
I went to
They perfectly encapsulated him, though, didn't they?
Well, yeah. A few months ago, I went to the Beerist, the monthly tasting thing where a bunch of people go to this one bar and bring their own beers and pass them around.
Bring their mustache wax.
Every one of them there was that guy, right? Yep. Grant, I've seen your mustache. You could be that guy.
Even our beer ladies have their mustache was waxed.
That's right. But no, that just struck me as really interesting because I don't know. It was just like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to? It would.
Well, it's always this. The conversation is never like fully addressed by them, and I thought they finally at least had the balls to draw a line and say something like, hey, there's always this tension between the craft beer market and our macro beer world, and they finally said, hey, we're going to acknowledge that you guys exist and up yours.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of the same. I mean, I guess it's the fact that like we still have McDonald's in a world where, I mean, like in a town where we have like so many better
great food options,
just burger joints, not even like just good food, but between, you know, carts. We have a couple of In-N-Outs here. We got some Mighty Fine and P. Terry's and places I've talked about before. In spite of the fact that we've got places that, like Hop Dotties that do like crazy gourmet burgers and food carts all over the place. The fact that, you know, McDonald's still has a foothold anywhere, to me, I guess just goes to show that you shouldn't count this shit out too fast because apparently people are still eating McDonald's hamburgers or else they wouldn't be in business anymore, right?
Yeah, their beer's not going to go anywhere, but it's going to dwindle. I mean, people have exposure to so many other options now. Craft beer, like before Prohibition, was huge. We're not even close to the number of breweries that they had then.
I'm looking for, you know, when they take the rubbing alcohol and they just pour some syrup in it, like back in the pro. I'm looking for the return of bathtub hooch that'll kill you and turn you blind.
Those were the days.
Actually, one of my favorite stories was on one of the Cracked podcasts where they're talking about like actual conspiracies that people don't know about. So you know that there was a lot of grain alcohol stolen during Prohibition that they would use to then they would make this shitty rot gut out of.
Yeah.
And that the United States government decided that they were going to basically like poison grain alcohol in a way so that it's still usable in an industrial sense, right? But if you bought it and you tried to drink it, it would make you sick or kill you, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't tell anybody. So then, like, that shit just got, you know, taken off the back of trucks and made into rock gut, right? And then a whole bunch of people either got sick or died because of it. And
is that true?
Yeah, it's totally true. You can go
okay.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's just like, because their rationale, of course, was like, well, if you're a law-abiding citizen, then you'll have no problem, right? So,
yeah.
But that's so myopic. The same way that goddamn Budweiser commercial is myopic of like, we're living in this new beer and alcohol renaissance. I mean, not even just beer, right? But Jason tells me about going to places that have custom vodka, like the whole cocktail culture, right?
Gin. There's a bunch of gin
places
that are popping up all over.
Tequila
Cider
bars,
mead.
Yeah. So to somehow think that you're able to fall back on like the lowest common denominator shitty crap that you were only able to sell because there was no way to get anything better.
Yeah.
It's so myopic. I don't know.
It did wreak a little bit of desperation on their part.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, as usual, I've been doing nothing. Anything of note happened to you this week? Or just been playing video games and doing stuff?
I just kind of, I mean,
Okay.
I watch TV shows. That's my thing.
Well, we've got 2 non-video game stories to run through before we get to the news.
Yeah.
All right. So first up, I like to call this little segment, Jeff backs off a little bit from being a dickweed.
What?
Not entirely. Not entirely. All right. So this is going to be, we talked about, I hate it when we record. Like, I always feel like there's only a certain amount of things to talk about every week, and that the more I talk about on like individual Let's Plays, the more I end up repeating myself or talk about on the live stream or whatever. But
yeah.
But one of the
sometimes happens.
big pieces of news that came out this week is apparently Spider-Man. Okay, so Spider-Man is now still going to be owned by Sony. But they're going to let Kevin Feige and who's the lady in this story?
Amy Pascal.
Okay, come in and basically write Spider-Man for them with the idea that Sony still has...
Well, she's going to produce, and they're both going to be co-producers, but they're going to allow Marvel to kind of have a hand in overseeing the reboot of Spider-Man and integration of him both in the Sony world and Marvel.
All right, and so that the possibility that he can actually come into the Marvel Cinematic Universe
Not
movies.
just a possibility. They already got him slated for it.
Okay, cool. So when we were playing Evolve, I made some bitchiness about Spider-Man, and
You weren't the friendliest to Spider-Man.
okay, and here's the thing: I'm going to stick by a lot of that. In that, I started thinking about it today. And the last 3 Spider-Man movies, like I thought that the Amazing Spider-Man reboot, that was okay, but it wasn't. I mean, I know a lot of people who just straight up hate that movie.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily straight up hate it, but it was just like I watched it once and I was like, you know. And then I started thinking back to, well, let's see. So Amazing Spider-Man 2, terrible garbage mess, just spilled feces on the floor. Gross. It was. I didn't like it. Right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3, not really. I mean, I like Sandman, but it was just a giant train wreck, right? In my opinion,
I didn't care for the third one.
Right, but
I like the first and second. I like the origin story of the first one a lot. In fact, I thought it did the Spider-Man origin story the best.
Right, but see,
of
the thing
many
is that
origins.
What I find interesting is that I look back on the first 2 Spider-Man movies, and I think that they were really good when they came out.
Yeah,
But I feel like the bar has been raised for a lot of comic book stuff to the point where when I think I need to go back and watch them, but when I think about them in my mind, they're less lustrous than they used to be because I'm comparing them to...
I always think of how crappy he looks. It's like when I think of Yoda in The Phantom Menace.
Oh.
Like, ugh. What is that little green monster?
So here's the thing. I'm going to stick by my guns of saying I don't really care about Spider-Man all that much.
Okay.
Right? He's just not a... He's a... And
He doesn't butter your bread.
And I think that a lot of that is because he's been done a disservice in popular culture for a while now. Spider-Man 3... not the best. Amazing Spider-Man reboot, okay, but not the best.
A lot of people had problems with what they kind of did to him in the comics lately as well. Like after that,
One More Day. Or
One More
whatever.
Day thing where they like reversed a lot of his storyline.
Well, and that's the other thing about the comics, right? Is I mean, even before that stuff, I know some people are really into the whole Clone Saga thing, but when I started, it was like one of those things where I'm
Isn't
just
that
going,
one of the most controversial ones where like a lot of people hate it too?
I know. Well, the thing is that I just remember when they were doing it, and I was reading stories. I'm like, so wait a minute. The guy that's been Spider-Man in the comic books for the last fucking 50 years or whatever is not Spider-Man? He's a clone of Spider-Man? Go fuck yourself. Like, no, none of this. You can't retcon Spider-Man that hard, folks. But what I do really like about this is that I really hope that they do it and that it works, because I love the idea of not having to pry these other Marvel IPs out of the hands of other studios. And if you can make an example of Spider-Man and go, okay, you saw what Amazing Spider-Man 2 brought home from the box office, right? And then you let Phage and the MCU get a hold of it, and suddenly it's doing like 4 times that amount at the box office.
Yeah.
Then you can go and be like, now are you sure you want to stick with your Fantastic Four reboot? Because we'll give you 30% of the 5 times that we make over here.
It's the foot in the door, and the actual like genuine love and passion that the characters deserve and that the fan base craves.
Yeah.
And you made a good point off mic about we have witnessed already this desperate flailing of Sony to try and keep making these subpar Spider-Man movies. And some people will disagree. Some people think they were great, but they certainly could be better.
Sure.
And I don't think many people would say they were Marvel quality with what Marvel's been putting out lately.
I mean, what I would say is the best that they've done are on par with what I consider to be the more mediocre of the Marvel movies.
Exactly. And there's something to be said, like, it's sad just to watch them desperately cling to the rights, and then so they have to keep churning these out
Right.
that they don't fully believe in.
Right.
And yeah, allow Marvel, who definitely knows the characters, to steer the ship and share the profits. And I think it's a much better win for everyone.
I just, for my money, I just look to this golden future, right, where it's like you can have an Avengers movie. You can do something like what was the one that they did? Secret Invasion with the Skrull invasion, where basically at the end it's like every hero from the Marvel Universe is standing out there having these titanic fight scenes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you were just able to reintegrate the X-Men and to reintegrate, because I mean, to be honest, like in the Marvel Universe, I mean, it's been a while since I read, so I'm totally talking out my ass here, but the X-Men and the Avengers and those people, they had crossover, but it was not like they were doing it every week, right? The X-Men kind of stuck with the X-Men, and the Avengers kind of stuck with the Avengers, and Spider-Man kind of stuck to his stuff. Like, I feel like Spider-Man has more of a connection to Fantastic Four than he has to the Avengers, really.
It seemed like the mid-2000s is when all of a sudden it was just crossover event after crossover event with like everyone, all the big guys.
But I love the idea of a day 4 or 5 years down the line where we can have one movie every 2 months from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that if they manage to line that shit up and keep bringing in good directors, that, yeah, maybe they're not all the best movies you've ever seen, but
how much money do they need, Jeff? Come on.
What are you saying? Are you telling me that at a certain point they just start putting these movies out, they don't even charge you to go see them? They're just like, yeah, new Spider-Man movie, I don't know, go if you want to.
Yeah, just give it to us for free.
And then every week in between, there's a new Netflix original series of what? Oh, you know what? This piece of news that I didn't bring up, but we talked about somewhere, the Zelda on Netflix. We talked about that, didn't we? Did we talk about it on our Zelda Patreon playthrough that not everybody gets access to?
Yeah, if you watch our Patreon video, you can see it.
Well, before we move on, do you have anything else to say about Spider-Man?
I did, just in the fact that this certainly is a foot in the door for the argument that if Fantastic Four does not do well,
right,
and this does end up turning out really well,
yeah,
it would be awesome that we might see Fantastic Four in time for this Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity Crisis, whatever they're calling it, storyline. It'd be perfect.
I want you to put your money on the table right now. Is Fantastic Four going to be any good?
Man, I'm leaning toward it won't be that good. But I'm like,
of the road.
I have 40% confidence in it.
Okay,
that's what I'd say.
Okay.
What about you?
I think it's going to be for me. I think it's going to be a lot like Amazing Spider-Man, not grossly offensive, but not really doing anything that is special, right?
I mean, I found it already weird, like how guarded everything was in the production, how long the delays were in pulling everything together and getting it done, which makes me think, are they having a lot of problems? Are they like doing rewrites and trying to fix a bunch of shit? I don't know. It just seems like it's been quite a headache, so I'm skeptical, I guess.
Okay. Well, then let's see. Netflix. I need to bring this open here. because I forgot to bring this up before we started. Apparently, Netflix is they're in talks. They're looking to develop a Zelda. Let's see. This is from a story.
Are you sure they're just in talks? I thought they had pulled the trigger on it.
Netflix is in the early stages of developing the series based on the best-selling video game about a boy named Link who must rescue a princess named Zelda and save a fantasy world called Hyrule. That's the most by-the-numbers description of the Zelda franchise I've ever seen. It was almost like somebody gave this news writer an assignment, like use these 3 words in a sentence, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Here, I'm going to continue. Look,
here's what I think happens. They leak this story.
Yeah.
And then they look at the reaction, and everyone's like, holy shit, they're going to do this? And then they're like, well, now we're definitely going to do it because look at the interest.
Let's see.
This was all over the place.
Wall Street Journal reported the streaming service is in early stages of creating an adaptation.
Okay.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing about the Zelda franchise. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what all I said yesterday. So if you can, stop me when I start repeating myself.
No, you can repeat yourself. Now everyone listens to the Patreon.
Oh, okay.
You should, though. You should, listeners.
Oh, you're guilt tripping? You're guilt tripping listeners?
Yeah.
So the thing that I think that Zelda is perfect for an episodic franchise, right? Hyrule's a big world. They got crazy characters, interesting visuals. They've got a clear cut, good guy, bad guy, stupidly easy. You got dungeons and forests and Octoroks and all kinds of shit that you can put together. I think it's great. I've seen some fan-made Zelda shit that was of quality that I would watch it on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
What I worry about, though, is that Nintendo's going to get in there and tell them, well, you can't do that, and you can't do that, and that's too dark, and you can't do that, and you can't do this, and what you're going to end up with is some kind of, really sanitized version of Legend of Zelda. I don't know, though. I mean...
maybe. I mean, it's Netflix.
Yeah.
Who seems to kind of... they've been pretty business savvy and smart with who they get in bed with on most of their projects thus far. I would be surprised for them to make such a careless mistake as to not know their boundaries with Nintendo before kind of kicking off something like this.
Okay, I guess
I'm sure they kind of institute a lot of contracts in place for creative control and end product, and you guys can have oversight into these elements. But at the end of you kind of have to, or else it's such a monetary investment for you to kind of get fucked over like that. And maybe I see it all the time in movies, but
I guess it's just okay. Maybe I take it back a little bit. Zelda's worrying because you have a franchise. It becomes that horrible question that we see all the time. You've got a franchise Zelda, right?
Yeah.
Video game company Nintendo that not always, I'm not saying this like this, but a lot of Nintendo's market share is younger. A lot of their audience is younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to make a live action Zelda, right? It's obviously not going to be like Game of Thrones bloody, obviously, right?
No.
But there's that fine line that you have to skate that I see a lot of people failing on a lot of making a series. Okay, what I want to see is a Zelda series that's like The Princess Bride, where you have things that can appeal to a younger audience, but enough sophistication around the edges that older... I'm a big sucker for every time you watch a movie or you think of a movie in your childhood where you can have a 7-year-old watch it and they're going to laugh at a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then there's going to be subtext in there, some romantic or some adult subtext that as an adult you could sit there and watch the exact same thing and laugh at the other stuff. To me, I always Princess Bride's a good example. I think Ghostbusters is a fantastic example of something that there's some weird adult overtones. When I was a kid, I wasn't getting any of the stuff with Dana and the romantic subplot.
Yeah, I was like, what is a dick? Right? I don't even know what that means when he calls him that. Sorry.
But I just worry that it'll go too far. I don't think it'll go too far in the dark direction. I don't think there's any way that they'll let them make a
but they might make it a little bit too saccharine.
If it's too kid-friendly and it doesn't... Or if it ended up as something like we've seen stuff. I mean, I don't know if it would translate, but stuff like Adventure Time, where it's ostensibly for children, but it's just strange and it has enough adult undertones in it that you can watch it. Or Korra, Avatar is a perfect example, right?
Yeah,
of a show that I can watch as a 36-year-old man and go, yeah, this was some decently put together plots.
I'm just so curious when I hear live action. and that world that I'm like, how do you visualize some of this stuff? Is it going to be like this Jim Henson kind of Dark Crystal Muppet universe?
No, dude, I said not horrifically dark and scary.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Dark Crystal is terrifying.
It's a bit scary,
even now to me. Even just the protagonist, I'm just like, what's wrong with your? Why are you so skinny?
Let's not even think about it.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if this goes forward. Do you ever feel as a TV dude, Grant? Do you ever feel that Netflix is just doing a few too many original Netflix programming shows?
They got a lot of irons in the fire, it seems.
Yep.
Like, I was just reading about this other Wachowski TV series that they got in development called Sense8, I guess. I don't know. And it's like, didn't I just read about like 5 other things that they're doing?
I mean, do they still have... I'm always curious about, like, I didn't watch Marco Polo, that's original Netflix, right? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Lilyhammer is in season 2 or 3, right?
Lilyhammer was one of their first ones, yeah.
Hemlock Grove,
Hemlock Grove was them going for a niche grim type audience, and I don't think it really kind of hooked.
I guess for me, it's just there's been a few Netflix original series that I haven't given a shit about. And House of Cards, I like House of Cards. I don't think that season 2 of House of Cards was as strong as season 1.
No.
It was good,
but it might have been a little pulpier. I mean, if you kind of take off that sheen of like, ooh, this is higher art,
right,
and watch it, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It just seems like it went a little trashier in the second season. I was like, oh, okay, just put this in line with Scandal and Revenge and all those other shows.
I enjoyed it immensely, and I remember reading stuff online where people like, this isn't how the United States government works, and I'm like,
I love that.
Kevin Spacey murders a dog in the first 10 minutes. This is obviously not supposed to be... Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of television, we got one more story before we get to the video game news, and I don't want to spend a heck of a lot of time on this, but it's definitely worth mentioning. So, Law and Order SVU is doing their Gamergate episode, and we watched a little chunk of it.
Well, I think you can say that if Law and Order SVU's covering it,
yeah,
it's a dead issue. Who gives a shit anymore, right?
I was watching it and I was like, oh my god, the writers of Law and Order SVU, like, they haven't touched a computer in years. They're like, I mean, like when Ice-T comes up and he's like, yeah, they put it on the dark net. Like,
it's so ridiculous.
You mean Twitter? Is that what you're talking about? The dark net?
Like, they went through the dark net to post that on Twitter.
Right.
It's untrackable.
You mean 8chan? Like, that's, you don't need to make up some sci-fi sounding bullshit. There's 100 websites that you could talk about that do this shit all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
So what was the? I mean, you said there was a little bit of uproar. Like, did people? Did people care?
Yeah.
I mean, what's going to happen is that the target audience of Law and Order SVU is like older people who. Big deal.
Yeah. I mean, for my money, I don't really want to get into it because we're already running a little bit long, but I think that there's a clear-cut difference, and you and I have talked about this before, right? I think there's a clear-cut difference when you're talking about the whole Gamergate thing between there is a conversation that needs to be being had that has nothing to do with video games or feminism, that is about online harassment of other people.
Yeah.
And what's considered a threat. And I've read a bunch of articles that talk about, like, if you're being directly threatened and you take a bunch of tweets to the police, they don't have any fucking clue what to do unless you are a police officer. There's actually a thing that I was reading that was like, if you tweet at the New York Police Department, I'm going to kill some motherfucking pigs, right? They will come kick your door down.
I feel like you shouldn't have even said that.
Well, yeah. We're not going to NYPD. No.
Yeah, and by pigs we meant, actual animal pigs because we like bacon.
Mm-hmm, yep, bacon. But
why are we sweating so much?
Yeah, kind of. Okay, yeah. Anyway,
Windows clear.
There's a conversation to be had that nobody is really having. I feel like it's the sort of thing where a lot of people are just publicly shouting their opinion about it. You say there's got to be. It's worth going to have a discussion about when does a threat turn from something that you have to ignore to something that you have to take seriously.
Yeah.
And what systems are set up online to track who you are and where the threat is coming from and blah 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 blah. Like that stuff probably all needs to be re-examined, because as of right now, I don't feel like law enforcement or even policymakers have any good idea about what to do with it. Right? Like,
I mean, we often talk about how we listen to this Cracked podcast.
Yep.
And I was joking the other day that we should make our CPCP, our Cracked Podcast commentary podcast.
Right.
Basically, where we'll just kind of comment about what they talked about, or just kind of piggyback on the same topic and add more, like where we feel they missed out.
Yeah.
Because part of the frustration is that they jump into such interesting topics like this one.
Yeah.
And then I don't feel they do it as much of a service as they should, because they kind of just also too busy making jokes about
they just
stuff.
dance. Well, sometimes I feel like they get good. That particular one was frustrating because it was just like they just danced around it, told horror stories, and then they were done. Right?
Yeah,
like,
but it's like, no, this topic of the right to privacy, or the boundaries of how you interact with other people online is a just such a rich mine of discussion.
Yep. I absolutely.
And I agree. Like this show right here, it's probably just going to hit the surface level of this stuff and not really address kind of these deeper issues.
I've only seen the trailer. I kind of want to watch it to see who the eventual bad guy is. If it's just like some greasy nerd with a neck beard, right? Like, but yeah, I think that there's honestly, I think that this is always hard stuff to talk about, but you come to this question eventually saying, do you have a right to, do you have the right of full anonymity on the internet? That's a question, because that's not like a free speech issue. That's something different. That says that if you go on Twitter and you create an account and you threaten somebody and then you delete your account, that those logs are saved on Twitter with your IP address and where you live, and that if your threat is taken seriously, that the police can then take those and then act on them, right? It would be if you write a letter to somebody saying you're going to blow up their house, that's a direct threat that's not covered under free speech laws. And in a lot of these cases, I feel like a lot of the problem just comes down to strictly anonymity. And there's a lot of people who believe, and I understand all the arguments for why you should be able to be fully anonymous online.
Anonymity is great for creativity. I think it's shitty for this kind of stuff, because if you can't say this stuff to someone to their face in real life, you probably shouldn't say shit like that.
But
people just feel like so entitled to be dicks to other people.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I don't know. I mean, again, from the Cracked podcast, they had a thing where they were talking about they thought that once that we started seeing more systems like Discus, where you're like using your Facebook profile to log in, that you'd start to see the amount of shitty things that people said cut down. But you go to any political website that has Discus and you will see people using their full-on name with an open Facebook profile to say horrifically racist shit to other people, like just no bones about it, right?
Sure, but I mean, who's it? Louis C.K. had that little bit where he was talking about, when you're younger, and maybe this was on Cracked or it was on Radio Lab. I don't know. I hear these things repeat on other sites, podcasts, but he's talking about like when you're younger, you insult other people, like you say things to them, and you have to learn from that, like that you get a reaction from them.
Sure.
And that's how you know not to say that anymore. Like he uses the example, you call someone fat, and then you see they don't like that, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But online, you can type something and walk away and never have to see the reaction.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, I can just say what I want without any consequence, and there should be consequence. People need to face consequence for what they say.
Yeah, I just
in one form or another.
I think that it's hard to make a case that it's unreasonable that if you directly threaten somebody generally speaking, as a culture, that's not a right that's outlined, right? That I should be able to find your phone number, call you up, say, I'm going to come to your fucking house, I'm going to kill you, and call you once a day and say that to you, like on the phone, right? That you should be able, that's like a right that I should have, that I should just be able to call you and say, I'm going to kill you every day, right? Generally speaking, that's not protected. And I feel like that's the discussion that gets so mired when you start adding in the whole game development and politics and people and women and stuff like that, that if I think that a lot of the issue that you're seeing that I don't know that this seems to be again. I say at the beginning of these things, I don't want to get into a 20-minute conversation, and then that's exactly what happens. But that there's no. You don't have a right to be able to threaten people in full anonymity without facing any consequence whatsoever. And whether you're allowed to say horrible racist stuff on Facebook and not get fired from your job, I feel like that's different. That the easiest first step is just saying, let's just get to a point where where people don't feel comfortable going online and telling other people they're going to come to their house and murder them. Because I don't think that's too much to ask, is it? Are you really having like your freedom of expression quashed by being like, what? I want to tell people that I'm going to shove shit in their ass all the time, right?
Some people need this. They need this weird release.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know
either. I don't know either. I just think that it's worth. It would be better to have these conversations than it would be to continue to frame the whole thing as a Gamergate, non-Gamergate thing, right? Like that. There's a bunch of upper tier discussions that need to be had about just the way that people interact online, and it might be time to start drawing up some rules about that as opposed to just because the whole thing has evolved in kind of a Wild West mentality, and that's cool for a lot of reasons, but I think you're also starting to see places where it's holding people back.
Yeah,
right.
I think policing is going to have to happen a little bit more.
Maybe. I mean, maybe. I just keep coming back to the idea that there's no argument that I can make that you should be able to threaten somebody's life and then just walk away and let them live in fear about whether you're serious or whether you're just some asshole, right?
Yeah.
That's not a right that you should have. But anyway, all right, well, let's move on to sunnier pastures because it's a heavy conversation. All right, so Grant, oh boy, right after we recorded the podcast last week, new trailer came out for my game. It's my game.
This is your game.
Not your game. Persona 5 new trailer, and a trailer actually showing just a teeny weeny bit of gameplay. What did you think, Grant?
The trailer was kind of badass.
Uh-huh.
And I'll say that.
Okay.
I think it's got this great funky vibe. It's got sort of this like Saul Bass almost inspired like animation interplay.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's gameplay, right? That's just fun trailer.
Well, all the
animation.
all the anime stuff would be cutscene, right?
When it goes all like red, black, and white.
Yeah, that's probably some of that is probably for the trailer specifically, but then there's
like that's cool stylistic stuff. But then I see the actual gameplay, like all those people on the train or whatever.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow, that looks terrible.
Well, so just you and I have never run into the Persona franchise before, right? The Persona franchise is a JRPG, but it's generally split into two parts. There's a part where you're in a dungeon fighting monsters, right? Mm. And then there's a whole other side of it, which is kind of the innovation of the Persona franchise, where it's like a Japanese social simulator. So like in Persona 4, during the daytime, you go to high school. And then at night, you go into this other world and you fight monsters. And then the stuff that you do in the high school, like the relationships that you have and how you spend your time after school, influences stats and things that you then take with you into this world. So if you just go fight monsters, you'll eventually become too weak or it won't be good if you just spend all your time fighting monsters. So sometimes you have to go out and cultivate relationships with other people and stuff like that.
See, I guess I'm so confused because I watched this trailer and it seems like I see three different styles. Like at the very beginning, I see this sort of anime,
right?
Typical style.
That'll be cutscenes.
In the cutscenes, okay. And then it jumps into this shit right here, where it's like
this is the red and black.
This red and black, like really wildly creative, stylistic. Like just this visual style that I'm like, okay, I would love to see this in a game, but I don't think this is the same as that intro cutscene. And then it goes into this gameplay, which has this 3D kind of quality, and it looks kind of cheap.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that I can kind of understand that.
Look at that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that it's jarring. See, from my perspective, okay, so we're looking at this trailer right now, right?
There's three different styles in this. It's weird.
And like this stuff on the train with the number of people, not this, but the thing is that I think this is when you've played another Persona game, I think this starts to come into perspective a little bit better because what this is walking around during the daytime doing your social stuff, right? But just the sheer scope of the amount of people that you're seeing on screen and the amount of stuff that you're seeing in a game which is probably going to be like 40 to 60 hours long really is probably going to open up. I don't know. I understand what you're saying. The black and red stuff is probably just like opening and stylistic stuff. They're probably not going to see much more of that than just in the trailer.
They just introduced a fourth artistic style into this. I don't know. I get a bit confused.
Yeah.
I think the music and these elements that we're seeing with the red and black and white stuff, I think that's really well done.
Yeah.
I like how that looks. I'm imagining that's not the actual gameplay. And I wouldn't like it that way.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. The other thing is that I don't know. They don't really show enough gameplay in here. They show some like kind of third-person cover mechanics, but traditionally, Persona, when you get into a fight, is your guys and those guys, and then you hit attack, right? So,
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, we see a little bit of the gameplay. I'm pretty. I wouldn't even like them jumping between these visual styles.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I saw some people in the comments that are super excited. Your cup of tea, not mine.
I think that the thing that's interesting to me about this is that the last game... See, I didn't play Persona 1, 2, or 3, but Persona 4 took place in like a sleepy mountain town, right? Where your character goes there for like a year to stay with your uncle. And that's where the whole story takes place. You make friends, you go to school, you have these adventures, blah, 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 blah. This seems to take place in a much more urban environment, and I'm really looking forward to that. Like kind of a downtown Tokyo type of vibe. So.
Okay. Well, hopefully you play this with Aaron or John.
No, Grant. No, you must experience it.
No.
All right. Next, basically, this is just kind of a footnote, but it's interesting. So E3 is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I really need to put in my application for Media Badge. I haven't done that yet.
Get in there.
Yeah. But this year, Bethesda is having an E3 conference, which is really interesting because traditionally speaking, they're not one of the companies that have a conference, and
this is the first time they've ever done that.
And they're having it. It looks like, okay, if I'm not mistaken here, Sunday, June 14th. Which, okay, so traditionally speaking, in the E3 world, Monday is press conference day. Tuesday starts with a press conference, and then the show floor opens, and so you then have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Are your days at E3, right?
Okay. So they're jumping the gun.
So they're doing it. But see, we've seen a lot of movement in E3 recently where like Nintendo used to have a press conference, and now they just have an online video, pre-produced video. So they don't rent a stage. They don't come out and make those announcements. They just put out a video, right? And you watch it, and then they tell you all the things. In fact, they do it several times a year now because they figured out that it's way easier to just produce a video and put it online than it is to rent out a freaking hall and fill it up with journalists and then get out on stage and things go wrong and blah 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 blah. So I don't know. I think this is interesting. I don't know what all Bethesda has coming out this year. I hope this means they're going to either announce fucking Fallout 4 finally. That's my alliteration for the day. Or maybe I don't think they're going to make a new Elder Scrolls because they're still pimping out Elder Scrolls Online, but. I don't know. I like the idea of when every company. I like the idea that these companies have become big enough to have their own show because it gives us something else to watch and comment on.
Yeah.
Instead of just being rolled into somebody else's show.
Cool.
Let's see. Next up, so EA has confirmed that Shadow Realms, the four-person online horror kind of action game that I think BioWare was involved with at some point, has been canceled.
Good riddance.
Which kind of sucks. You weren't around.
Shucks.
Well, actually, it was weird because they had a really interesting viral marketing campaign where they were just putting out these really weird horror trailers. And one of a guy like walking through a parking lot. And he was like kind of scared and like he was looking over his shoulder. And then he got to his car and he went to put the key in. And he looked inside and he was already inside. And it was just like, whoa, what is Shadow Realms? I don't know. You're freaking my mind. You're a mind freak. But I guess they just didn't get. Let's see. We made the decision to. This is a quote from BioWare Austin General Manager Jeff Hickman. We've made the decision to not move forward with development of Shadow Realms. We fully recognize this news is disappointing to some of our fans, so I want to explain more behind this decision. And it looks like it goes on to say, kind of a standard.
We just didn't feel like it.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
This was all a money swindling scheme.
Right. And we got
all our investor money.
That's right.
And then we just put up these little puppet video game manufacturing things.
And then he says, what is this last? He says, peace out, bitches. And then it says, microphone drops to ground. Okay, so that's...
Damn, nice.
Yeah, all right.
Congrats.
It kind of... And I think it always sucks when you see something this big get canceled early on in development.
Something that you saw a lot of potential in, too.
I don't know if I really saw a lot of potential, but it was something different for that studio.
You saw potential. You saw moxie in this kid.
It's something different, right? It's not a sequel. It's not a reboot. It's not an HD up-res. It was an original property from a studio that has a tradition of being able to make a goddamn video game, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sad just for the loss of that property because those are the properties where when they come out and you play them and you're just like, holy shit, this is great. I thought it was going to be garbage, and it's the best game I played this year.
Well, I'm sure EA will come out with like a 5.2 HD of something else remastered.
Yeah. Good thing that Battlefield Hardline is still on the horizon. All right, so here's an interesting story. So check this out. The Wii U, right, hasn't sold super well. John Sitton told me this story, and I at first didn't believe him. So apparently Ubisoft made a game for the Wii U, and then the Wii U came out and it sold, and Ubisoft came back to Nintendo, and they were like, this game is done, but we're not going to release it until you move like another 1.5 million Wii U's into the field because we're just not going to put it out with the amount of consoles that you have in people's hands. It was a full game they were just sitting on. Well, apparently some inside information came out that revealed that this game... It's probably not a bad thing because this game looks like it was going to kind of be weird garbage. It was a paper...
What is this?
It's a papercraft game. What's it called again? Let's see.
It's called High School Design Student Art Project.
Let's see.
I think that's what it looks like.
Let's see. Know Your Friends. There's going to be some kind of crazy party game where it's probably going to be like a Super Mario Party type of thing where you take pictures with the Wii U camera and then you put your heads, your creepy ass heads on these creepy ass bodies and play creepy ass mini games.
You remember that Christmas video where you could put your heads on the dancing elves and people would always share those?
Oh, the Jib Jab ones?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what this looks like.
Yep.
That's not high praise.
Yeah, I'm glad I look at it and I go, good. Glad it didn't come out. Don't give a shit.
Good job, Wii U. Yeah, sit on that game. We don't give a fuck.
So, speaking of Nintendo, so a little while back, there was so let me lay down the story for you here.
Lay it down.
So you know that whenever we make a Nintendo video, we put it on YouTube. Nintendo instantaneously, as soon as they notice it's a Nintendo property, they snap it up, claim copyright, take every piece of money that you would get from it, right?
I think it's because they hate us, Rage Select, right?
Yeah, it's just Rage Select. It's not anybody else. It's just no. It's everybody on YouTube.
Because you slept with Mr. Nintendo's daughter,
Mr. Nintendo.
Yeah,
is that who you imagine is the CEO? It's Mr.
Is he a doctor?
John Nintendo. That's
Dr. Nintendo.
Dr. Mario. Is that what you're trying to get?
Dr. Mario Nintendo.
Dr. Mario Nintendo, CEO of Nintendo. In any case, they did this for a while, and then a couple weeks back, 3 or 4 weeks back, I guess, somewhere around that time frame, they put out this thing where they were like, hey, guess what? We're going to give you the opportunity to keep some of the money that you would have made off of the product that you put out by putting up this Nintendo affiliates program, right? So it's like you sign up with Nintendo and then you become an approved Nintendo channel and then you get like 60% of whatever you make and then they only take 40. And so I look at that, of course, I mean, Rage Select's videos, we don't get enough hits for that to really matter. It's not like, oh my God, don't take all half a cent of our 2 cents that we made, right?
Yeah.
Not worth my time to sign up. But there was a story that came out last week that goes to show this is some Lando Calrissian shit right here, right? Like people who signed up for this, they got some more information. Nintendo will not allow you to be one of these partner channels unless the only games you put on this channel are ones on the Nintendo-approved whitelist of games. So if you look at any other video games on your channel, you're instantly not eligible for this amnesty affiliate bullshit program.
Wow.
Allow me to just say, what a crock of shit, Nintendo. Like, Jesus, man.
That's pretty fucked.
Yeah, like, you're only going to extend, like, it's such a weird deal, right? Like, okay, so if I have a YouTube channel, it's popular enough that I can make money off of it, right? Which is already hard. And I just play Nintendo games, then Nintendo will allow me to keep 60% of my profit. But then you start thinking about it, you go, if up until now Nintendo has been taking 100% of all profit of channels that play Nintendo games, what would have been your incentive to only play Nintendo games on your YouTube channel at that point if they were taking all of the profit?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck kind of... This doesn't make any sense. It's like...
It's their weird, like, bait and switch. They're like, yeah, you go ahead and sign up with us, and then we have your... address and name, and then we can actually properly sue you.
Right. Yeah.
You
So
motherfuckers.
this is dumb, and I think that Nintendo really needs to get like behind the time. They really need to get out there and fucking figure out what the hell they're doing, because they're making it like a couple of years ago. People wanted to play Smash Brothers at
Some big
the big fighting game tournament.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called right now. And Nintendo was like, no, you can't do that. And it was like, you're kidding, right? Like, this is the biggest fighting game tournament.
So they're
that's
just kind
out
of like
there.
ostracizing their own community.
They're just they act like old out of touch grandpas, right? Where it's like they don't seem to understand the way that the tech and stuff is going. The point where, why would you lock anybody? Why would you disincentivize anybody from playing your game on a YouTube video, right?
Yeah.
You're just free publicity that other people are putting their like blood, sweat, and tears into doing. So I don't know. I mean, we're still going to play Nintendo games here, but all right.
But not for profit.
We got to pour one out here, Grant. So last week we announced that Sony Online Entertainment got sold. This is the people who created EverQuest and DC Universe Online and those games, right?
Okay.
Got sold to a third-party place. And I actually know, I used to work for the organization, but I know a bunch of people who used to work for them. So they got sold to another company. Unfortunately, this week there was a big round of layoffs. We don't know exactly how many, but apparently both contractors and full-time employees here in the Austin side, as well as in a few other studios, are getting dropped, which inevitably tends to happen when you get absorbed into some other company.
There's redundancies.
Yep. But that sucks, because that means people that I probably interacted with at some point have lost their jobs. And I don't know.
They should come over here and work at Rage Select Studios.
For no money. That's exactly what...
Fat stacks of internet comments.
That's right.
That's what we work for.
That's right. That's how I pay you, Grant, is in internet comments.
People are so nice.
All right. Before we get... we got a few more stories here. We'll go through them pretty quickly. I thought this was interesting. There's a League of Legends fan posted this open letter last week. So League of Legends is a game that you play. It's they call it MOBA, right? For people who don't know, it's like Dota. You have a team of people fighting against another team of people. It's like Warcraft, but it controls one unit, and it's huge as far as competition goes, right?
Yeah.
So you'll have. I mean, it's like some places it's bigger than professional sports. You have like draft picks and stuff like that, big players. So this guy writes this open letter to parents of children who play League of Legends, because apparently, when you're playing a video game, right, and it's time for dinner, and you're in the middle of something, and you're like, I'll be down in 5 minutes, Mom. And then 5 minutes goes by, and she's like, get down here now, Grant. And you're like, just 5 more minutes. I just like, pause it. I can't pause it. And then she just like comes up and like punches the power button, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you drop out of a match of League of Legends, it affects like your entire team's reputation online and your standing, and it can conceivably lose a match quite easily. So this guy wrote this open letter to parents going like, hey, I know you're trying to teach your kids about responsibility, but when they're playing this game, they have a responsibility to all the people in their team and whatnot, so quit yanking the plug when they're playing this game.
Yeah, best of luck with that.
Sounds like a pretty good scam to me. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, that's very funny.
In fact, wasn't it last time that you were on that we had the story about the League of Legends in like Indonesia or something? With,
the fight,
the big fight in the cafe. Yeah. All right, 2 more stories and then we're out. The trailer came out for that new Hitman movie.
Yeah,
looks saucy. I like it.
Yeah, it didn't look too bad actually. I mean,
it looks fucking ridiculous.
It's high octane, just popcorn, goofy movie, action movie.
It started and it was like, oh, are they taking this seriously? And then this gun, and it was like, oh no, okay, this is like Jason Bourne meets the Avengers, basically.
Yeah.
But it looked really fun, and Zachary Quinto is in it. I don't know much about that Rupert
Friend, he was
Murdoch
in
guy or whatever.
Homeland. He's been in the past couple seasons. He's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude looks like Codename 47. They still haven't addressed the whole problem of, like, he's the world's greatest assassin who has a shaved head and a barcode tattooed on the back of his neck. How hard is he to pick out? Like, when he's coming into your place to murder you?
He wears that really subtle red tie that stands out everywhere, too, though.
But no, I mean, it looks like over the top ridiculous.
Yep.
And I can't wait to go see it. It looks like Fast and the Furious, kind of, right?
Yeah. I hope it handles it well. It'd be nice to have a video game movie that just kind of owns that shit and has fun with it.
Yeah. And last but certainly not least, they put out another story trailer for Homeworld. I showed it to Grant. Grant was like, we watched the story part of the trailer, and then it got to the gameplay part of the trailer, and you were like, man, I was excited before that gameplay happened.
Yeah, the gameplay, it just seems so, like, quiet and boring next to this, like, really dramatic intro to the game.
I still think this shit looks absolutely magical and fantastic.
It looks pretty.
I've got mad nostalgia for original Homeworld.
I've never played the game. I don't know much about it.
We'll see. It comes out at the end of the month. We'll be playing it at some point on the show. I mean,
Okay.
whether it's Sunday streaming or the dojo, it'll come up sometime. And with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to answer your questions. mail@rageselect.com is the email address. That is mail@rageselect.com. Shoot us your emails, and we will answer them. And we will do that momentarily. And welcome back, Grant. I gotta start the timer, man.
Oh, yeah?
The Red Bull's worn off.
No.
The coffee's doing less and less as time goes on. If we get to the last question, and I'm just like, is if somebody from just slap me upside the face. Good hard open hand slap.
You heard it, folks.
But do both.
You
cheeks.
heard it, folks.
Do both cheeks, because that's the only way to wake me up. Right? Is if you
just
do
a
one,
double slap, just a slap.
No, not the backhand, because the backhand you get all the knuckles in there. You
Like, just bring them together, like I'm clapping together?
You don't want to moosh my face together. Slap with one hand, and then slap with the other hand.
Okay, and then I need to, like, dunk you into, like, a water basin or something, right?
No, not that. It's not.
It's like the Wild West.
You're not
waking.
Yeah. You're not waking me up so I could drive the DeLorean here. All right. Like, all right. Well, I tell you what, we've got a bunch of questions today, so we're just going to jump right into it. Mail@rageselect.com. If you haven't heard that enough, that is mail@rageselect.com. And our first question comes in from Thwack. And Thwack says, "Dear Jeff and Grant, are upgrade systems becoming too commonplace in video games? It seems that every single big-budget game coming out these days has an upgrade system of some sort, even if the core gameplay isn't built around it. For instance, the last Call of Duty game had an upgrade system in the solo campaign, even though you have access to most of the abilities in multiplayer. Did Advanced Warfighter really need to gate those abilities in single player to specific missions/upgrades, or did they design it that way because that's the hot new trend in game design? Now with the ability to double jump..." Thwack. Wait, is he saying he has the ability to double jump now? Wow, dude. You come over here and teach us. I can jump, but then I can't kick off the air hard enough to double jump. I don't know.
Let me upgrade you, Jeff.
Grant, do you have any real opinion about this?
Is it really new? I mean, we've played games forever that seem to have like this progressive upgrade mechanic.
I think it's become, as you've seen, just relative game design become more sophisticated. It's become more of just a thing that you see in a lot of different games.
It's more like a highlight now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Call of Duty. Like, I feel like you can break games. You can break games into games that focus on progression and games that focus on gameplay. I don't know, I'm probably not saying that right, but like some games, as you play them, you're going to want to keep upping the ante to make your character more and more powerful, right? And I feel like in a lot of AAA titles, that seen as a way to just give the game more depth, so that it feels like you're evolving your character and getting more powerful over time. Some games are more like
when you can't actually write proper character development in the story, you just give them upgrades.
Give them upgrades. I don't know that I agree with that, but I feel that some games, like if you take a traditional, like Doom, right? I mean, that's a real big throwback, right? Or Quake, or some of the earlier Call of Duties. I mean, Modern Warfare, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, one of the best FPSs in my opinion, didn't really have upgrading. You had different guns, right? But you had a set number of abilities at the beginning, right? And then the whole game was kind of based around giving you different arenas to use those abilities into, letting you get better and better and better at them. So in some ways, you could almost see the trend in upgrading is part of the way that people describe as like the easification of video games, right? That the longer you play it, the more you can upgrade. The more you can upgrade, the more powerful you get. And so what that means is that you're never required to get better at the core gameplay. You're not required to evolve your skill over time as the game gets harder. You're just able to make your character intrinsically more powerful to overcome any obstacle as the game goes on. I feel like they both have merit. I mean,
different strokes.
I think that
folks.
you're not seeing quite as much of the latter, right? You're seeing more of that in indie games or like indie platformers or things like that than you are in traditional games. Like I'm actually trying to think back last year to games that didn't have upgrade mechanics in them, and I'm actually kind of coming up a little blank, right? You try to think of the best games we played last year. I mean, you know, Dark Souls 2 had upgrades. Obviously, that's an RPG.
We played games last year?
Yeah.
Remember, like, every time you do this, like, oh, well, think back of the other games. I'm like, man, I don't remember anything. I never remember games.
Yeah. I mean, Evolve, the game we played this week, right?
Yeah. We played that yesterday.
Yeah, like
I remember
as you attack with one weapon in Evolve, if you get a certain number of points in it, it'll level it up and you get like an extra 2% damage bonus or something like that.
It would be weird with a game called Evolve that you don't upgrade at some point, though, right?
Well, that may be true. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking up at my games here, and I'm trying to think of last time I played a game that didn't have upgrades in it. I like upgrades personally, but that's just me because I like the feeling of progression and customization to the character that you get out of having upgrades. But I don't know. You could make a case as to why you can use upgrades as a crutch to basically overcome what would be more difficult of a gameplay design problem, right? Of how do you keep somebody engaged if their abilities aren't constantly changing throughout the course of an entire game.
I can see that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of all for any time that the game industry does something innovative and or interesting. Like one of the reasons that I like Dark Souls so much is because it does have an upgrade, but it also has a clear set of rules, and then it forces you to keep having to change the way you play the game in order to continue moving forward. Right? Or at least I have not ever in Dark Souls been able to just start the game and then just go through the entire game playing the same way over and over, because there are certain types of things that will impede your progress because you got to come at it from a different direction. And I really enjoy that because it means you got to think a little differently about it. And that's actually maybe a good example of where you are upgrading, but you're not just over-leveling yourself to the point where you're too powerful. Like, you're still going to have to concentrate on how you're playing the game, no matter how powerful you get. So maybe that's a good way to kind of split the difference between those two. I don't know. Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Thwack.
Our next one comes in from...
Who is this? Who dat?
I'm going to say I'm just a noob, because that's the last... Yep, it says I'm just a noob. Hey, what's up, Jeff and Grant? I hope everyone is having a good day. Thank you. I've been a listener ever since the Spill/Loading Bar days, and after searching on the internet frantically, was so glad when I found you on Rage Select. You helped me get through high school without losing too much of my sanity, and I will always be a loyal listener and hopefully a patron someday.
Cool.
Today I have a question about jobs and when to leave them. I've been working at a grocery store for about a year and a half, and I planned to quit when I graduated high school last year. I always planned on moving away after high school, but things happened, and now it might be a while before I can move. The job I have now isn't that bad, but I need money to help with the move in college. The job only pays $7.25, I assume an hour, with pretty much no chance of a raise. One of the
That's
people
a day, Jeff.
What's that?
$7.25 a day.
No, God. Oh wait, he's emailing us from like the 1800s or so, or 1920. One of the only people I know there got a raise okay, one of the only people I know that got a raise only got a 10-cent raise after 3 years. Everyone I work with /4 says I'm a hard worker, and my coworkers always say they can't believe I work so hard for what I get and should make more. Even my manager says I'm one of the best workers he's ever had. The only thing I'm afraid of is if I get hired and have to leave a few weeks later, I would feel bad about getting hired just to quit, and I don't think the manager would appreciate it either. I assume he's talking about he gets hired in a new job and then he's moving 2 weeks after he gets hired or whatever.
Yeah.
So my question is, should I try to find a better job or stick it out with the job I have until I can move? I would love to know what you think of my situation. Anyway, thanks for reading, and sorry for the long email. Keep up the amazing work. I'm just a noob. And then he says, oh, random Dongacles praise.
Nice. Find a new job, dude.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, you already have built up the work experience that you need at this place. I would say if you need that safety net, find the other job before you quit.
Yep.
But feel absolutely no loyalty. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business. You can do you should do the courtesy to them to give them 2 weeks. But that's not a courtesy any business ever extends. Most businesses don't extend to their employees.
Yep.
And because you confuse employers with the business itself.
Yes.
And that's an easy mistake to make, but you got to look out for you, man. 10-cent raise over the course of 3 years is terrible.
That's nothing. It might as well be nothing. It would be better to not even give a person a raise.
Generally, people should get about a 2 to 5% raise every year. That's just
not anymore.
not anymore, but in general to account for inflation for what you've been hired for.
Yep.
And the increased skill set and loyalty and knowledge and what you provide to them. That is what you should kind of expect at a lot of places. Starting out minimum wage places, not as much.
Yeah.
But dude, you need to find something else. And if you've stuck it out and you already have made a mark at this place with your work ethic, you should be able to find something else.
Well, I mean, you've got, as far as I'm concerned, you've got two different things here. One is that it sounds like management has been upfront with you that you're not getting a raise.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want more money, they really couldn't fault you for going somewhere else, because it's like, well, I need more money, and you told me that there was no more money, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty simple.
That's pretty fair.
As Grant said, don't confuse liking your boss, right? And he's a nice person, I like my coworkers, with feeling any kind of loyalty to that company, right? Because there's two different things. Also, I've noticed a trend, at least from my friends who have jumped around to different jobs over the last few years, that it seems to me that in this particular day and age, you don't get a raise at your job. You go get a new job for more money. Like, the idea
use that as leverage
of the 2 to 4% raise every year is kind of gone. From
my
what I've
last
heard.
job, I asked for a raise every single year, and I generally got it.
Yeah,
because I also know you don't get a raise without asking. Generally, you have to be upfront and ask, because a lot of people don't ask for raises,
right?
And you should go in with an expectation, but also have your reasons and justification when you ask for a raise. Be like, here's what I provided for you. Here's the raise I would like.
Yeah.
The worst they'll say is no.
I've been working at this job for like a year and a half, and I haven't gotten a raise the entire time. All right, I keep asking my boss for one, but he's a shit.
I ended up getting a raise.
Shit. Yeah, Grant got a raise.
I got a paycheck.
I don't know why I can't get a raise, mother. No, I'm just kidding. The other thing is that in the terms of you talking about, like, I would feel bad about working another job for a few months and then quitting, dude. In this particular economy, I wouldn't feel bad about. I mean, you don't want to like, don't poop on the floor every time you're going to quit your job, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't feel bad about going somewhere and getting some money and then being like, I'm sorry, I have to leave. I mean, it's not the world's greatest move, right? But on the other hand, businesses aren't like your family or anything. Like, you don't owe them anything, bro. Like, get the money and then get out.
There's a lot of different interesting jobs you might be able to get. That, I mean, I remember I started at a projectionist job. No, I didn't. I wish. I started out as a concessionist at a movie theater.
Just smelled like Rita popcorn all day.
$5.15 was minimum wage at that point. That's what I was making.
Yeah.
And I ended up sort of selling my soul one night, like just all of my pride, just desperately trying to sell hot dogs for a 10-cent raise. I got it. I had to sell so many hot dogs, but I ended up buying one, and I found out that the amount of money I spent on just buying one basically invalidated how much I was going to make off of that raise over the course of like the next couple of weeks or whatever. It was like it was stupid.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean.
So yeah, look for the best. Every time that anybody ever comes to me with work advice, I give them the exact same advice that everybody has given me well over the years. If you want a new job, look for a new job while you're at your current job. It's going to suck and it's going to be a pain in the ass, right? Because you may have to take time off for like an interview or something, and it's going to probably feel a little bit shady, but there is nothing better than my favorite thing of all time was I got headhunted kind of out of this one job, and then I got hired on to this other company as an independent contractor, and I was clearly an employee of the company that I was working for, but we were going through this shitty scam business that was independent contracting us, so they didn't have to provide us with like health insurance or any of that kind of bullshit, right? And I went and interviewed during a lunch break, and I got another job. And like, so there was like, it was like a Thursday afternoon, and they called me and they were like, hey, we want you to come in on Monday and do a new job. And I was like, great. And they're like, do you need 2 weeks? I was like, nope. And I walked over to the guy who wasn't really my boss, but he was my supervisor, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, I'm leaving this job. And he's like, oh, well, we'll be sorry. Here you go. When's your end date? And I'm like, no. Walk me to the front and take my badge. I'm fucking out of here.
Yeah, pieces of shit.
And he was like, did you finish what you were doing? And I was like, fuck no, I'm leaving. Because I tried to bring to that supervisor, I went over to him and I was like, I researched what an employee means, and we're employees, which means that we should be having like health benefits,
yeah,
paid in a certain way. And your company, which is a big company, is liable because you're using us as employees, but we're classified as independent contractors so that this scumbag company can get a tax dodge. And they were like, oh, we'll look into it. And then like 2 hours later, I got a call from the scumbag contractors, and they were like, who have you been talking to? And I was like, the people who tell me what to do. And they were like, who told you could do that? I was like, what are you talking about? Nobody told me I could do that. And they were like, well, if you have a problem, you need to come to us because you don't work for them, you work for us. And I was like, okay.
I had a similar situation where I was contracted out to someone, and I ended up like they were like, okay, well, the job would offer about this much. And when I went in for my interview, I asked them like, how much should I expect to get paid for this?
Yeah.
And they told me a much higher number.
Yeah.
So I went back to the contractor and I said, oh, actually, they said I should make this much.
Yeah.
And they like threw everything out of whack, and they were like so pissed off. But I ended up getting that extra money.
Dude,
I was like, fuck yeah.
I have some shady ass. There was one night when I worked at Dell where I slept under my desk because there was an ice storm, and they promised that if we stayed there and we slept at our desks, right, and we were there for the first shift in the morning to give people a chance to get in, that they'd pay us double time and a half for all the time we worked the next day, which is like hot shit, right?
Yeah.
What am I doing? I'll sleep under my desk. I don't give a fuck. So I did, and then I got my paycheck, and it was like not even overtime.
Oh.
And I went to my contractor, and I was like, but they told me that I would get double time and a half. And the lady was like, well, they're not your employers. We're your employers, and nobody said anything to us. And that was the point where I was just like, okay, so I'm only going to work here 4 days a week by basically telling you guys I feel like I'm going to throw up whenever I want to go home.
Yep.
Because go fuck yourself. So I have very little loyalty to employers at this particular point. All right, our next one comes in from D Block Guard, who says, Dear Jeff and Grant, since the point-and-click adventure game has made a comeback, what other genres do you wish would make a comeback? For me, it would be a text-based game. Well, that's interesting. Would have modern-day graphics, or not. I'm not picky. Like that. But would also have a bigger range of input options. For example, the characters no longer say, I don't know how to kick down the door, and actually attempt to kick down the door. Just wondering about your thoughts. Sincerely, D Block Guard. That's an interesting one. You could probably make a pretty sophisticated text adventure, right?
Yeah.
These days. I mean, that would probably be really easy. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's a couple places that we can actually get text adventures from. But I don't know. Do you have a particular genre of video game that you think would you like to see become more in vogue again?
We played. I don't remember the name of it, of the style. But what's the one where they like Phantasmagoria? They integrate the video into it. The video clips into the game.
That was Phantasmagoria, wasn't it?
Yeah, but what's that style of game?
FMV? I don't know.
Is that what it is? But we played that other one about 6 months ago. I don't remember what it was. They had some little green screen scenes in there. But I'd like kind of a return to that where they integrate these little like
shitty full motion video. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I want more shitty FMV in my games.
I'd like to see them play around a little bit with it.
Sewer Shark 2. All right, well, we could probably make that happen. For me personally, I feel like it is making a comeback, but space combat used to be a big thing, right? Wing Commander and Free Space and Privateer and Freelancer and all those types of games. And then we've got, I don't know, Elite Dangerous is a little too technical for me. I'm hoping Star Citizen isn't ridiculously technical, but I really enjoy flying around. Like there was about 4 different types of games where it was just like, here's the universe, here's a ship, go do whatever you want to, right? And I'm like, great. So you could be a pirate, you could be a trader, you could be, all that kind of stuff. And I think that I've actually played a couple games, like Elite Dangerous has VR integration, and I feel like that shit's perfect for that because you're in a ship. So like you're dogfighting, you could look up and see where the other guy is, and then like pull back, and you get a real sense of like movement and scale.
That's kind of cool, yeah.
Yeah,
that'd also probably make me motion sick.
Everything in the Oculus makes you motion sick.
Just looking at you in this room makes me motion sick.
You might need to see a doctor.
I don't know. Something's wrong with me.
Did you not? I did put the Oculus on you when you came in. This is all a virtual projection. You do know that, right?
I'm still laying in my bed in my house.
That's right. We're just Skyping this. Okay. I'm trying to think of other old school. I mean, I like that adventure games are. I mean, the Telltale's kind of doing adventure games, but I really wish that there was more adventure games, like pick up Chicken Pulley, use Chicken Pulley on this, and then like I liked back in the old school LucasArts era, we had the Grim Fandango remastered, right, came out. But that's more of a like you pick up a bunch of crazy stuff and then you've got to figure out their weird logic puzzle to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
In the Telltale games, that stuff is so stripped down. It's more about conversation than it is about picking something up or doing something. Like so I'd like to see some more traditional adventure games. I know there's a couple companies out there that do them, but they're a little I really like LucasArts. I can't wait for that Day of the Tentacle remake that they're putting out. Also, stealth games haven't been as much in vogue these days. I like those quite a bit. I don't know.
I like puzzle games.
Puzzle games?
Yeah. But those, I don't think those are still around.
Candy Crush?
Yeah. I just want to play Candy Crush all the time.
I had this really good idea for a video game I'll tell you about later on.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just going to put that out there as well. Suck it! Oh, my God. Okay, I'm going to skip over part of this question.
This is a long email.
It's a long question. I'm going to skip over this example that they have. But this was a question about the Flash TV show, so I thought it'd be interesting. It says, hello, priests of the Dong. This is VJ from the island of Mauritius? I don't even know where that is. I've been a long-time listener from the Loading Bar days, and I would like to thank you for the years of hilarity. Well, you're welcome. Recently, I've started watching The Flash from Grant's glowing recommendation. Although the first few episodes got me hooked, I think the show is starting to suffer from major plot I assume this should be inconsistencies, /tropes / outright stupidity. For a show that relies so heavily on scientific explanations from supposedly smart characters to advance the plot, this stupid shit just pisses me off. I'll try not to go into spoilers here, but here are some examples. First, the hero's love interest is a colossal pain in the ass and puts herself in danger. Everyone knows that Barry is somehow in love with her, including Barry's dad, who is in prison ever since Barry was a kid. Guess who doesn't know? Guess who doesn't know that Barry is in love with her and considers him just as a friend? I feel like okay.
Sure. Iris is the only one oblivious. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try to summarize some of these. Let's say in episode 10. The city's being terrorized by 2 assholes wielding beam guns, which are apparently more terrifying than regular guns. The only way to stop them, you'd think punch them in the face at superhuman speed would be the top pick. Wrong! Apparently having a couple geeky scientists make a Ghostbuster reference while writers high-fived each other behind the camera was more important than plot simplicity. We've been shown in previous episodes the Flash doesn't have super adversity to punching people in the face. There's no mention that these fuckers are bulletproof or have superhuman reflexes. The only power they have is super restricted field of vision from the goggles and parkas they're wearing. One of the detectives was able to sneak up on them to protect the Flash. Not once did he think, oh, hey, maybe I could shoot them in the face while I'm at it. The villains were surrounded by policemen while the Flash was attempting to go through with the reference. Somehow none of the police wanted to shoot the rogues while they were busy with the Flash, even though they had the gun pointed at them. All right.
Yeah.
So my question is, what are the video game / TV shows that started off good and then did some stupid shit that totally put you off? By the way, I totally agree with you on Lost, Jeff. Boom, that was my answer. That show was some bullshit. They couldn't get past the first season. Thanks for answering my question. All hail the Dong Lord, VJ. I have not gotten far enough in the Flash to see these things, but Grant's shedding a single tear over here.
Why do you say that about Lost?
Dude,
that wasn't
bitch, you put up with more from me about Lost on a daily basis.
That
All right,
necessary. And I agree with him about the Flash. It's gotten, I don't know. I mean, I was giving it glowing praise initially, and now I'm kind of like,
yeah.
It's just kind of going downhill. I think it came back from the break, and I'm just kind of
See, I guess
on these episodes.
When I was watching it, like, I don't know, there was a pretty full suspension of disbelief you had to have to watch The Flash.
Yeah,
so.
it's fun and kind of goofy, but I don't know. It seems like it's getting a little sloppier, a little lazier.
Yeah. I mean,
a little bit of its magic is just kind of dwindling.
Things like that don't... okay, so like recently I was watching Avatar, right? I was watching Korra. I've seen season 1 and 2 Korra. And I was like, there are so many points in Korra where all this shit could be fixed if you just used your earth bending to punch a hole in their chest with the rock.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everybody just gets thrown up against stuff and then goes, and then gets back up again. And it's just like, just murder them already. Like, just... If you like, I know that I understand it's a children's show, right? But it's presented as kind of an adult thing.
Lock their foot in with some rock or something,
right?
Whatever.
Or like that guy's gonna destroy the world. Shove ice through his face, right? Like, quit batting him up against stuff with your air bending. Suck all the air out of his lungs, or use the bend the air in his lungs so that it just breaks out of his body and his rib cage explodes, right?
Damn,
like,
Jeff, you're dark.
He's literally going to destroy the world.
Yeah, but you don't have to kill him because of it.
Like, you've already shown that you can't talk to him. He's not reasonable. And every time you hit him, he just gets back up and kicks your ass a little bit.
It's that same Superman dilemma, right? Like, you have this person that has that kind of power.
Right.
There's got to be something that, like, he just doesn't think about all these things. Like,
sure.
But blow on them; they'll freeze to death.
Right. So when the stuff that they're
just blow them, Superman. Just blow that dude.
The stuff that they're talking about here.
I was watching a different video.
Is the stuff that VJ is talking about here is like you have to suspend your disbelief, right?
Yeah,
you have to, because somebody pointed out the end of Dark Knight Rises, where he's got his bat. The bat, right? Mm-hmm. And he picks up the bomb and he takes it and he heroically sacrifices himself. Anybody with a helicopter could have done it. Didn't take Batman to do that, right? Or when it comes to...
He had the best close machine.
Right. Like Bane is on the steps of the courthouse walking around with his hands on his vest like he does and shit, right?
Yeah.
All it takes is one guy with a high-powered rifle to just shoot Bane in the face. Like, not maybe in the face mask, right? But in his head... that's totally exposed. There's a lot of things in the Batman universe that could be fixed if they just shot people with the gun bullets.
Yeah.
So it's fine. It's fine. When you go into this stuff, I generally tend to suspend my disbelief. But you're saying that Flash has been going downhill.
I don't know. Just a little bit. I think that it's losing a little bit of the charm in its dialogue as well.
Okay.
Just some of those elements. It's still watchable, but...
Okay.
I've been kind of delaying on watching the episodes as much as I was before, which is usually a sign I'm not digging it as much. As far as answering his question, Heroes. Heroes was a great show that...
Ooh, good example.
Great example, yeah, of a show that just got progressively dumb. What the fuck dumber?
Yep.
Just bad. Burned all of its bridges. And hey, guess what? It's coming back. Why?
Why? Yeah.
It's a show no one asked for.
I just had something in my brain. Battlestar Galactica for me went from 0 to snooze super fast. Like the pilot episodes that they had, I was like, all right, this is cool. You get this giant noble battle, you get this lady, blah blah blah. But like and again, this is one of those things where I can understand why some people would watch The Flash and get put off by this, because have you ever watched Battlestar Galactica? Like they got it's very early spoilers, right?
I watched the first 2 seasons.
Okay.
And I thought they were both pretty good.
For me, it was one of those things that I just couldn't get past, right? Where they know early on, right, that there are Cylons that look like people that you can't distinguish from people, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're going to put one person in charge of figuring out who the Cylons are, and it's the guy that's like humping his toaster and acting weird like he's a crazy secret robot man. He's the most untrustworthy character in the show, and they put him in charge of finding out who the Thing is, right? Like, it's...
But he was one of the most brilliant people on Earth.
Yeah, fucking... like, if you're... Yeah, I'm sorry. It just didn't work for me. Like, that dude's shady as fuck, and it just didn't work. I was like, no.
He's so dashing, though.
I can't
you can give someone a pardon
fuck
for
you
being
guys,
dashing.
Baltar. Like, it just made everybody else look stupid by comparison. Like, this guy is acting like a fucking freak, and you're like, one of us is a robot. Who could it be? And meanwhile, this guy's always sweating.
He's always going down the hallway, beep, boop, boop, bop.
Right, exactly, right?
He's like, hey, you guys got any of that Cylon food around here? I'm really hungry.
He's fucking the toaster every 10
Cylon
minutes.
food? He's a fucking Cylon.
It's like, no, I just like it. I got a taste for it.
Yeah, it's all that.
Yep.
Thanks for the question, dude.
Yep. Also,
Lost is great.
I've tried to watch Babylon 5 so many times, but I can't get over the special effects. They're so bad.
Yeah.
I really want to watch that
It's like
show.
Farscape. I know you love Farscape.
Eat a dick, Grant. All right.
Yeah.
Next one comes in from Daniel, who says, hey, guys, this thought came to me when I was playing the Evolve beta. I'm starting to feel that betas have the same issues that I had with game demos. Playing them will dampen my enthusiasm for a game because of mediocre features, or I feel like I'm playing the only good part of a game. It gets worse if a game has been in beta for a long time. Makes people like me hesitant to pick up a game when it officially releases. Based on your experience, do you feel betas are better than, worse than, or about the same as game demos? If better or worse, how are they different? Thanks and take care, Daniel.
Do they charge for these betas?
Not as much anymore. Sometimes it'll be the sort of thing where they'll want you to like pre-order the game in order to get access to the beta.
Yeah.
Or if you pre-order the game, then you have access to the closed beta or whatever.
Why do they do it?
Well, in the case of like Evolve, a lot of times or like Destiny, they'll do it as a test of their servers. So they'll let a bunch of people on to monkey around to basically get a better idea of what the load's going to be like when they launch the game and to work out some stuff. Plus, they can track what players are doing, and they can get data based on that that can help them tweak the game in ways.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like betas are important, but I'm kind of with him. Like when Destiny came out last year, right, and there was a Destiny Alpha, and I played it. And there was Destiny Beta, and I played it. Then Destiny came out, and I played it. And by the time Destiny came out, the area that was both the alpha and the beta was the first level of the game. So when I went to go play it, I was just like, oh, Jesus, this again? Right?
It's almost like if they're going to offer this alpha and this beta for their testing purposes, they should offer it as a separate story, a separate little side quest that kind of introduces you, but it's not something you're ever going to have to repeat in the final product.
I mean, you see there's a lot of argument about against early access the same way, right? Where you know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where you say, oh, well, we launched it in early access, right? So people are playing what is ostensibly an incomplete game. But because you now have people trickling into the game a little bit at a time, you're not getting that big rollout burst like you do with a game launch. You're not getting like, it's the day the game is out. Everybody go play it, and you're all going to get your hands on it and see what it's like, right? Because people have already been playing it. They've seen the evolution of the game through different states. I feel like in a lot of ways, you got to have a really, really fantastic game to keep my interest through the alpha and the beta and et cetera into the actual game itself. As far as demos go, I kind of wish there were more demos because these days I have to buy a lot of games, and it would be nice to be able to play them first and just see if I like them.
You should just rent them.
Yeah, that's hard to do anymore in some ways. Anyway, I don't know. I think that they're about the same as demos. That they're not going to convince people who aren't enthused. There was a good extra credits episode where they made a really good case against demos. They said that demos are the people that are excited about your game. A few things. What do they say? 3 things will happen when somebody plays a demo for your game. They will either become more excited, less excited, or stay as excited. If they stay as excited or they become less excited, your demo is a failure, right? Because it hasn't done anything. It hasn't made people any more excited, and in some cases, it's made people actually less excited for your game because now they know more about it, and they know that they don't want to play it, right?
Yeah.
So the people that are already excited about your game it's going to be difficult to make them even more excited about your game. So demos are, generally speaking, they're a courtesy, right? But for a developer, they're a waste of time because you're putting all this time into making a thing that's probably not going to have much impact. Like, the only way that the demo would have a huge impact if it's something like PT, right, where it's a demo that nobody knew what was going on, and you're showing somebody something that wows them to the point where they're like, oh, my God, I wasn't excited about this before, but now I'm totally excited about it. But you have to really position that, because if you're already saturating your market with trailers and announcements and betas and things like that, then putting out a demo isn't really going to do anything more because people already feel like they know about it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the best place to put out a demo is if you put out a demo. This has happened a precious few times in the video game industry. If you put a demo out instead of like a trailer, right? Instead of your initial teaser announce trailer, if you put out like a little 10-minute squirt demo that just gives people an idea of what they're looking at, that can be really effective because it gives people instead of having to speculate based on a trailer, they've got their hands on it, so they can start doing word of mouth while the development process is going through.
Okay.
All right. See, I'm going to start chopping some of these questions. We're getting a little bit late here. All right. 3 more. This one comes in from SE German, I guess.
All right.
Hi, Jeff and Grant.
Hi, SE German.
I had to smile when I heard you going, oh, I love this game so much at the start of the new sequential Saturday, because I just started playing Mass Effect 2 again as well and felt exactly the same while going through the prologue. The thing I love so much about this game is something that some people tend to point out as one of its major weaknesses, the lack of focus on the main storyline. But that's what makes it a perfect game that's what makes it perfect for a gamer like me, who often just has about an hour or less to spend on gaming. Mass Effect 2's recruitment/loyalty missions all feature a self-contained story that isn't a part of the main plot. It makes the game's universe feel so much more alive, and the game basically feels like playing a session of a sci-fi TV show such as Babylon 5 or Deep Space Nine. My question, do you think there should be more games that basically just let you experience a game's universe like this, or should game developers mostly stick to the movie-like streamlined storytelling for their games? P.S. I know that you could argue that open-world games give you that opportunity, but I feel most open-world games fail to draw me into their world as much as Mass Effect 2 did. Hail the Dawn Lord, hail to the King, hail Storm. Hailstorm? Okay. SE German. So, I think it's just an interesting question of kind of what do you prefer as far as your storytelling goes, right? Like one long narrative or like individual bite-sized chunks.
It's like it's like movies versus TV shows.
Right.
Kinda like do you want these little episodic chunks that overall have this story arc,
right?
But are compartmentalized, or do you want just the big long narrative? I
like the latter. I like individual sub stories because I feel that you really, more so than a movie, right? Even a short game, right? Even like an 8 to 12 hour game, you run the risk of losing my interest in the main story by just focusing on that for a longer period of time, right?
Yeah.
In fact, Dragon Age Inquisition, like he said, I had a hard time getting involved with the main storyline because it was very big and ponderous, and there wasn't as much focus on the individual missions of the other characters, and I feel like that would have been. I think I would have liked that game more if they had done more of that focus instead of focusing on this giant world story, right?
Yeah, I agree.
But then I often feel these days, especially, like there's games have become overlong in a lot of ways to the point where
they feel obligated to deliver a certain minimum hour of content.
Yeah, and I feel that a lot of times that's fine if you've got enough story to fill up 12 hours, right? If you've got a story that paces along. But like Far Cry 4, for example, had, I thought, a fantastic story, but the story itself, the meat of the story, only made up about, say, 4 hours of the 14 to 20 hours that I put into that game. And there's a part of me that almost wishes that, like, it was interesting doing the open world thing, but after a while it started to get a little tedious because you're just doing the same thing over and over again, right? And that there wasn't enough impetus in the story to keep me going, so I kept getting distracted and bored.
It's interesting, this idea of pacing in a game and how you kind of have to fine tune that line because, I mean, in a way, pacing is defined by the player.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you want to make sure you're kind of prodding them along to a certain extent. And, when it kind of backfires because you've made it too long. You're like, I gave you even more game. And you're like, well, in the end, that's to its detriment.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where there's a lot of people out there that are clamoring for more game, right? There's a lot of, I mean, I read it all the time on the website. I've read it on other websites constantly, where there's huge factions of people that believe 8 hours is not enough game to pay $60 for. That's just what they say, right? If your game is 8 hours or less, it is, no matter how good it is not worth $60. And I can understand that. I mean, that's just, some people have different ideas about what is worth what, right?
You pay $10 for an hour movie, for a 2 hour movie.
I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But for me, I mean, like, it's funny whenever I talk with anybody about The Last of Us, right? One of my complaints about The Last of Us is that I feel it's a little overlong. It's probably about 3 hours too long. Is when you start getting to the point where, like, when they come to the school on the horse and stuff, like once it gets to like Act 5 and you're just like, oh, are there 5 acts? Oh, I don't. And then you get to the big dramatic ending where there's a lot of that stuff that could have been cut out. And I know that some people will argue that you needed a longer amount of time for the Joel and Ellie bonding to happen. But when you look at that game, that bonding happens naturally. And then once they've bonded, there's like a whole other act where they're bonded, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to the end game, right? To the point where you probably could have chopped here and chopped there. And, I guess I feel that you see this in movies, too, these days. You start seeing more and more movies. Like, I watched Interstellar recently, right? Too long. I feel like you could have chopped that down. Even before we started, we were talking about Better Call Saul and that there was a tendency on the first 2 episodes to just stretch it too much, right?
To linger on these beats, a little bit too long. Peter Jackson's notorious for like, what's your editor doing? What's going on? Why are you leaving every shot in there?
Yeah. That was one of the things I remember talking about that with people with Django. Django felt like an extremely long movie, right?
Yeah.
And there's just an efficiency. I feel that we've built this, that in some people's minds we've built this narrative that more is always better, right? And I feel like more is better if you've got something to put in there, right?
If you start noticing the length of something, it becomes you suddenly find that it's a bit too self-indulgent by the creators, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm a fan of if you can give me a really awesome gameplay experience and it only lasts for 2 hours, great. If you've got 12 hours worth of content, that's great. But last year, South Park: Stick of Truth came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is an RPG, right? And it was about 8 to 12 hours long. And there were some people that were upset with it because they were like, when I play an RPG, I want 20 hours of RPG, right? So this was about 8 hours. This is about a game short, right?
Yeah.
But when I played South Park, it was tight. Like, it kept moving from beat to beat to beat to beat to beat. And right about the time that a beat had worn itself out, moved on to the next thing. It had excellent pacing. So they could have padded out South Park another 8 hours. They could have just bulked up some of the stuff, put in more enemy encounters, and made it so that it was another 8 hours long. But I don't think that would have helped that game. I think as it was great because it just kept moving. And every time I was about to start losing interest, bam, here's something new. And it was like, great, now I'm interested again. I'm re-engaged and good to go. So that's one of the reasons that I like Mass Effect 2 is because it's got these little self-contained stories that you play. Not to be repetitious, but you see that as well, I feel like what I was saying before, in Dark Souls, about the way that you move.
Dark Souls!
I know.
We should have a ban on you saying Dark Souls.
I'll just have to say that game. It'll be like Voldemort, right? Like the game that shall not be named.
That's what it's becoming.
Right. But in that game, the areas have their own character, right? So you move from area to area, and each area has different enemies that operate in a different way. It has a different structure. It has different geometry. So it really feels like you're moving from story beat to story beat, even though the story hasn't changed, the tone of the area has changed from this to this to this. So. All right, 2 more, because Grant's about to fall asleep. Like
tables have turned. It's me.
All right, this next one is from Connor. Connor says, Dear Jeff and Grant, 10 years ago, the video game industry looked very different than it does now. You had the ever-present AAA titles, but an abundance of middleware and very few, if any, smaller indie titles. Fast forward to today, where we have an industry overflowing with indie games, and while there are still plenty of AAA games, the middleware has all but disappeared from the gaming landscape. My question is, what do you think the industry will look like in 2025? Will middleware make a comeback? Will the indie bubble burst? Will AAA remain a constant staple? Please, O seers and prophets of the mighty Dong Lord, shed light on the future for us. Your most ignorant and humble supplicants. Sincerely, Connorbrick. So, what's that? 10 years from today? So, let's see. I'll be
What will video games look like?
flying around in my self-driving air car with the blowjob machine or the blowjob robots.
I imagine it will be a lot more like immersive VR type stuff and look very realistic, maybe pretty engrossing.
I think that if I'm put my Michael Pachter hat on here, if you look at the trend of game development, what you're seeing is the same as feel like a lot of what you're seeing from music, from movies, from TV shows, from a lot of different places. The democratization of content creation in an easier and easier way. Like, Grant, if you and I wanted to go make a movie this weekend, we probably could do it for what, $6,000, right? Maybe if we're shooting on location.
About the same as El Mariachi, yeah.
Yeah, get a camera, get some stuff.
Be
right?
as good too.
Yeah, just better.
Yeah,
even better. But I mean, like you look at Better Call Saul, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you think about what does it take to make an episode of Better Call Saul? Look at that episode 2 of Better Call Saul. What were there, like 5 sets total in the entirety of that? And most of them were cheap, shitty places, right? Where you could just as well be doing it in somebody's living room.
A little strip mall in Albuquerque, whatever. Yeah.
Right. You could film it all with a handy cam. If you had enough people who were, you could probably go find. If you went and trolled through acting classes, right?
We would not be able to mimic that same quality, I think, with a Handycam, but sure.
Well, but I mean, you think about what it takes to get a camera that you can shoot. I mean, like Jason has a couple $1,000 DSLR camera that you're starting to get to the point where that stuff's difficult to tell the difference. I mean, if you have a fair amount of lenses and you're controlling your light stuff, it's more of a craft thing than it is a resource thing, right?
Yeah, you still have to have the talent.
Right.
But yeah.
So what I'm feeling is that if I had to make a prediction, it would be that the middleware tools that you see that you make games with continue to get easier and easier to use and more accessible to people to use. Things like Unity or Unreal Engine 4, which I think you can even lease Unreal Engine 4 now. You don't even have to buy the engine. You can just lease it like Creative Cloud, like Adobe Creative Suite or something. I think that's how that one's going. But as these tools become easier and easier to use, it means that it's going to take fewer people and less overhead to make a game that has the earmarks of a AAA game, that looks like a AAA game, but was made by a team of 5 people for a few $1,000s.
Well, those won't look like AAA games anymore then, right?
Well, it depends. I mean,
won't those just become kind of the standard indie fare?
Maybe. I guess that's my prediction, right? Is that you see...
I'd imagine that as technology advances, the more complex and fascinating, like, AAA titles are going to be the ones that are pushing other boundaries of technology that are going to be outside of the hands of just these indie developers.
Yeah. I mean, it's always the question of do you take a risk on new ideas that people haven't implemented into a game before, or do you just refine an existing formula? To me, those are the major brunt of what we see in the video game industry, right? You're taking a formula that's already been done and trying to refine it in a way that is good, or you're going out on a crazy limb, Fez braid style or something like that, trying to do something that's really off the wall. And I feel like that our appetite for things that we haven't seen before just keeps getting more and more ravenous. So the more experiences that can be delivered that we have not already experienced, the better.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel like. I don't know. I mean, the big AAA Activision EA places, they've got some potential. I mean, obviously, right? They're making big games and stuff. But like when we played Evolve this week, I don't know if there was anything really special about that game. Like it had some decent ideas and it was fairly fun, right? But it wasn't exactly anything we've seen that kind of style of game before.
Nothing to write home to your mom about.
Yeah. So
I did. I wrote her.
You wrote a long letter.
Evolve.
Dear Mom, today I played Evolve.
Write to your moms, guys.
Write your moms. All right. So last up, we have one from Eternal Legacy 17, who says, "Hello, Jeff and Grant. All hail the Dong Lord and such. Help me settle an argument that I am having with my roommate. I say that with everything moving towards digital-only media, that we'll see fewer and fewer collector's editions come out with physical items that you may only want to keep a few of. However, my roommate says that even if games become distributed 100% digitally, there will always be collector's editions because gamers will always desire them." He uses gamers in quotes. Your answer is greatly appreciated, and may the mighty Dong be with you always. Eternal Legacy 17. P.S. I know that Taco Bell is the official food of Rage Select, but considering the vast amount of taco places available here in Austin, Torchy's, Taco Shack, Fuzzy's, Chipotle, and Freebirds, just to name a few. But, wait, that was all he said. I know that Taco Bell is the official food of Rage Select, but considering the vast amount of taco places available here in Austin, and then he just names like several taco places. That's an incomplete sentence, Eternal Legacy 17. Also,
he wants to know like what we actually like.
I don't go to any of them anymore because
I like Taco Deli. I go there all the time.
Taco Deli is pricey, man. The place is overpriced as hell for what you get. Taco Shack is garbage.
Taco Shack is garbage.
It is straight up street dookie, man.
Torchy's pretty good too.
I think Torchy's pissed me off, but not for taco reasons, because they built a Torchy's by my friend's house with 2 parking spaces in front of it, and so people park up and down the residential neighborhood, and there's like, since that Torchy's has been built,
right where I used to live? Right there, right down Burnett?
No, so down like South First.
Never mind.
Like people hitting cars and getting drunk and out in the street and screaming at 2 o'clock in the morning.
It's Torchy's!
It's Torchy's! As far as I used to go to Chipotle, but they started light-handing me on all the stuff, right? To the point where I was just like, motherfucker, like, use your rice, bro.
Chipotle, meh.
And then I'm not a big fan of Freebirds, which is blasphemy in this town, but whatever.
Nah, I agree. They're old hat.
So Taco Bell is the only answer.
There you go. There's your answer. Eternal Legacy 17.
The only thing better than Taco Bell
cracks me up.
is a place where it's like some kind of food truck that's obviously going to give you diarrhea somewhere, right? With the side of a construction site.
They're everywhere.
That's the only place better.
Okay, as far as his question,
collector's editions. I think that we've already proven that even without physical media, they will have collector's editions. That they developed this idea that the collector's edition has exclusive digital content, like a digital art book and a soundtrack and a bunch of skins or weapons or something for your character that you can already get in the digital collector's version that doesn't come with.
But he's talking about like a physical package for a collector's edition.
No, he's saying, let's see. My roommate says that even if games become distributed 100% digitally, there will always be collector's editions because gamers will always desire them.
Yeah, so they'll still ship out this physical package that you can put on your shelf as a collector's edition.
I don't think that'll happen. I don't think they'll do that.
I think that's what he's asking.
Okay, well, if that's what he's asking,
if it all moves digital, why would people purchase this physical copy? Like, why would they want it?
Why would they
put it on their shelf as decoration, I guess.
Oh, I think he's asking collector's edition versus non-collector's edition, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Just like of like all 3 games or something in a pack. What's the collector's edition?
Okay.
Maybe I'm not understanding the concept. In movies, it's like this big old package that you can get.
Right. So Evolve will come out, right? Mm-hmm. And there's the Evolve collector's edition that you can buy for like $99 that comes with a statue and a bunch of bonus shit with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
But there's also such a thing as a digital collector's edition, right? It comes with, a lot of times the bonuses that you get in the collector's edition will be like different skins or different weapons or things like that are code that you apply in game to give to your character. So a lot of times there'll be a digital collector's edition that comes with like a season pass and a digital art book and a soundtrack and those things that I'm listing off. So
I mean, maybe that's what he meant. What I thought he meant is, if we're moving all digital, why would people want to still buy these little physical things to put on the shelf or whatever? If it comes with a CD that's outdated, we're not using a CD in the collector's edition.
I don't think that we'll reach a point where you buy the game online and then they ship you the bullshit out of the collector's edition box. I think that they'll just put up, because I'm pretty sure those collector's editions, I mean, they're so overpriced and they're so stupid.
I think to answer both y'all's questions, you and your roommate, I think, are both partially right. I think for the most part it'll be outdated, but I would imagine that there's going to be a niche market that they probably outsource to someone to just make some cheap little thing for collectors only.
Sure.
And I still think there's a market for collectors, and it would probably be pretty cheap to manufacture that for them.
As long as the consoles have a physical media drive, I think that you would see traditional editions die out before collector's editions. I can envision a thing where if you want a game, you buy it digitally. If you want the collector's edition, you buy it physically. And that's the only version that they make physically is the collector's edition, because otherwise, why wouldn't you just download it?
Yeah.
And that is our show.
That's it.
It's good because I'm just about ready to pass out. Grant, you look like you're about ready to pass out. So
I don't know how my eyes are staying open.
Yeah. Well, folks, thanks for listening. This has been the Rage Select Podcast. Mail at RageSelect.com. This comes out every Sunday. Couple of quick things before we wrap up here. One, hey, do us a favor and go rate us on iTunes if you want. It does help us out. It helps raise the rank there, and it does give us a little bit more exposure.
You do want.
Two, if you like our content, especially our videos, hey, do me a favor and share that shit with your friends on Facebook. Like, if you don't like it, don't. But if you do like it and you think it's funny, hey, let other people see it.
Spread the good word of the Dongacles.
That's right. Oh God, are we gonna have to leverage the fake religion in order to get more hits here? Is like,
yeah.
All right. So last night, like Joseph Smith style, last night Dongacles came to me and he said, "Everybody's got to share one video this week, or you're all going to dong hell."
You guys have homework assignments.
Yeah.
This is Project Mayhem.
God damn it. All right. And with that, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna get out of here. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Scabba